It's payday. The line snakes outside the automated teller machine ATM. The sun is blazing, and after 20 minutes of waiting, and you finally get inside, the screen flashes the dreaded words, out of service. Or you actually go through the process. You insert your card, enter your PIN, enter the amount you need, and that's when you see the prompt, low on cash. Not in your account, but in the machine itself. Worst case scenario, no prompt, just this sound. On many occasions, ATMs and automated banking machines (ABMs) are going dark or coughing up nothing, leaving customers stranded without access to their own money.
Jesus, no fries.
The types of complaints that have dominated social media.
Big grand market night. Come my ATM to. Hey, the customer man. Come my ATM a bag walk. Out of service.
I'm not happy right now. I drove from Angels in Spanish Town all the way to Spanish Town. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ATMs. Yes, 7 different ATMs I stopped off this morning. From 8 o'clock I've been on the road.
The frustration has been lingering in the urban area for a while, but the issue is particularly stark in rural Jamaica, where there aren't as many machines. A simple trip to withdraw cash has turned into a gamble, as broken and empty ATMs continue to frustrate residents who rely on them for daily life. This probe, to assess the accessibility and functionality of ATMs, carried us across 7 rural parishes. First stop, Manchester. At the shopping centre, there's a supermarket, clothing stores, and fast food restaurants like Burger King and KFC in close proximity. There are 2 ATMs, but it's not 2 times the possibility for efficiency. Instead, headache when they both don't work.
You have to be going to different ATM machine to try your cards, to get the funds, and most time you cannot be entering your PIN so many times with different machines. But nevertheless, if it's very that important to get the cash, you have to go inside the bank and let them know and then get the source of fund.
She notes that one of the machines in particular has a message displayed almost always, temporarily out of service.
And you may just turn back not knowing that it's actually working. But when you wait a bit, like 5 minutes, it started giving you access to enter the card, put in the card, enter your PIN, withdraw your money, and then when you get the cash, after that, it's gone back to its regular state, out of service. So another person might be coming in and think that it's out of service and leave, but it's actually working.
Other machines across the parish that seem perfectly fine haven't always been helpful.
I went into the machine, I tried to withdraw some funds. The machine did not say it was temporary out of service or anything like that. So I enter the PIN, try withdrawing the money. I heard like the cash is coming down, but it actually did not come out. I got back the card, receipt, but no cash.
She filed a report to the bank. Following an investigation, she was reimbursed.
Even though I get back the money, the experience was a bit bad because I was hoping that the money would come out at the time and it would not take such a long time to get it back.
Now, Guys Hill St. Catherine sits on the border of St. Mary. The town acts as a cross point between parishes and connects several communities. It has landmarks including Guys Hill High School, Guys Hill Primary School, a police station, health centre, and churches. Linvert Brown calls it home. So the ATM situation, he's endured it for years.
In our general area, we have about 1 ABM, and most of the time it is not working, it is out of service. And we have about 30 communities in and around the Guys Hill area that make up Guys Hill area. And the 1 ABM just cannot work because most of the time it is out of service. And the people depend on it. Because Guys Hill now is growing. We have more business places in Guys Hill today. More of our residents in Guys Hill are working. And we have a lot of small business which people have started up now. Sometimes it's down for all 2-3 days. 2-3 days the machine is down. And by the time it come up back, it down for another 2-3 hours.
There's levels to the dissatisfaction. The machine being out of service, that's immediate disappointment. When it's up and running, but dishes out no cash, that's another story all by itself, which often leaves people with their backs against the wall.
It's on a regular basis, people go to the ATM here in guys and there is no money. So for instance, we have a small farmer who is at his bush and he run out of things that he want to plant. He want a spray pump and he come to guys just to draw a little money to do it, and he cannot get it done because there is absolutely no money, and we have long lines there, and there is no money. So I'm appealing to the banks to invest more and more ATM machines so that the residents of Guyville and other rural communities across Jamaica can have access to money.
And this is real-time frustration. September 18, 2025. Kathleen Edwards was in need of cash to do business.
Right now I went to the ATM to get some money and it's out of money. They're not reliable in a sense. You need things like that must be reliable.
And so, with no cash in hand, she's left with 3 words.
Very, very inconvenient.
This is the main reason.
There's not plenty places in Guyville that uses card. So you have to have your cash most of the time and then you run to the machine to get your cash to come and use it, and then there's no machine, you gotta go back home.
It's human instinct to seek alternatives elsewhere when a service is unavailable at a given location. Guyville residents often leave the area in search of working ATMs. It takes miles.
From Springfield, you'd have to travel about 7 miles to go to Highgate to use one, or you'd have to go to Linstead, which is about 15 miles from here. From Springfield to the one in Guyville, about 3.5 miles you'd have to travel to get to use it.
So this is the situation at hand. Need arises. An individual urgently needs cash and turns to the nearest ATM. Obstacle. The machine is out of service, leaving them without access to funds. Costly search. They spend a portion of the little cash they already have on multiple stages of transportation to find a working ATM. Reduced resources. By the time they access a working machine, their available funds are already diminished by the cost of simply getting there. Miss Edwards knows this all too well.
And it's kind of bring you back. You have to travel all the way to Highgate, Linstead, Gale. And it's not like, say, it's a one vehicle you have to take to reach those places. When you can easily walk to up there, it's not working. That's a waste of time going up there most of the time. From Springfield is $150 to Guyville here, and then another $250 to reach Linstead, $300 to reach Gale, along with your $150 there. So you double that fare. And that's a lot to get to an ATM where there's one there and it's not working.
Let's head to Westmoreland. For over a year now, cash in circulation at the community level hasn't been presidential for residents and business owners in White House. The source of their plight? Crime. A single ATM used to be here at this Texaco gas station. But in July 2024, in a robbery attempt, thieves vandalized the machine. As a result, the bank pulled its services, leaving residents to travel miles to other towns just to access cash. Vendors like Roy have endured this for over 450 days.
You have a machine here, you have to go to Sav or Black River to get some money. Sometimes when you go there, no money is not in the machine same way at Sav nor Black River. So it is a rough time.
For estimated travel time by taxi, White House to Black River is nearly 9 miles. That's over 20 minutes and $250 for fare. White House to Savannah Lamar, some 18 miles. That's about 35 minutes and $300 for fare.
Sometimes some people cannot find the fare to go to South or Black River to get some money. They have to borrow it, go down there to get some money and to come back to pay them bills. But it's not easy to go South or Black River, it's not easy. No, it's not very nice.
Vaden Powell is the manager of the gas station. On July 18, 2025, he said since the removal of the machine, business has been bruised.
Every day, our customers ask us every day, when are we going to get back ATM? Every day. There's not a day that goes by that we don't get an inquiry regarding that. It's a lot of inconvenience to the community, to our customers. So we are trying our endeavor best to lobby with the bank so they can put it back. We are in that process right now.
There were 2 other ATMs, one in Darliston. They were removed after they were burglarized. Now on July 18, 2024, Richard Biles, governor of the Bank of Jamaica BOJ, and a team from the Central Bank attended the meeting of Parliament's Economy and Production Committee. Former Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Eastern Daniel Lawrence raised the issue and put this question to the BOJ.
Does the Bank of Jamaica help to regulate the spaces where the ABM located, or just the institution itself decides on that? And if, for instance, it may be done through breakage, they just pull it out of the space just permanently without even making mention or even considering the level of customer that usually use it. They just move it because of breakage.
Dr. Jide Lewis, the BOJ's Deputy Governor, with responsibility for the Financial Institution Supervisory Division, responded.
The standard that has been implemented since April of this year does require licensees, banks, to do an assessment, a risk assessment, before they put in an ABM in a particular location. And that risk assessment is to determine whether or not that location would pose a risk to members of the public, and also risk to their infrastructure or their assets, which would be the cash that is in the ABM. So we don't require licensees, banks to put ABMs in specific locations. The business model or the strategy of the entity will determine where they put their ABM infrastructure.
Dr. Lewis said there were a few instances where machines were vandalized and robbed.
The sector is looking at ways that they can tighten on the security around these, but of course it poses challenges. So again, it's a delicate balance, making cash available while protecting what ultimately are deposits, right? So we have to understand that it's the depositors' funds that are then turned around and used to facilitate the ability of the wider public to access funds.
Let's go 3 months before that. In April 2024, the BOJ introduced new ABM service standards for deposit-taking institutions, DTIs. This was done to strengthen consumer protection for customers. It provided guidance on availability of cash and maintenance and management of disruption of service. Where cash availability is concerned, each DTI should ensure that the cash level in an ABM does not fall below its determined cash threshold, referred to as the minimum floor. The minimum floor should be based on, among other things, the DTI's assessment of the demand for cash at ABMs and its ability to replenish the machines. This through the appropriate technology that will alert them when each machine reaches the minimum floor and when it is out of cash. It also says ABMs should not be without cash for more than 60 consecutive minutes in urban and tourist areas and 180 consecutive minutes for remaining areas. But the reality on the ground is a nightmare. We've heard a wave of complaints, and on the other side of this break, we'll hear from more Jamaicans, so stay tuned. Prezi Hybrid Farm Store has been in operation for nearly 14 years in Guys Hill. For the first time in all those years, the man running the business is ready to invest in a point-of-sale POS machine. If he doesn't, he will continue to lose sales when shoppers aren't able to get cash from ATMs.
I find out I'm losing out, so I decided to say, well, I just need to get a card machine to see if I can make it more easier for people so they can do their shopping much easier and comfortable. If you come to Guys Hill and you intend to draw, say, 10, 15,000 just for talk's sake, and you come to purchase some things and you don't get it, you head for Linstead, you're going to just buy what you're buying at Linstead, and then the taxi, you're going to just drop you back home. Which now, if we have more ATM here with more cash flow running into our community, then we'll find the community can bounce more because people have the cash spending right in Guys Hill here instead of Highgate Linstead, and other areas.
Reliable customers are being forced to cancel purchases.
Come with customer who want to purchase in fertilizer because him see some rain, he want to purchase fertilizer chemical. Go to the machine, like him do the purchase, so yeah, you know I need 5 bags. When he goes up, I'm now, so yeah, I'm gonna just go to the machine, get the money, no money. Have a next person come back, so yeah, I want some chicken, I want some feeding, no money. Then now they say, boy, oh, they see the machine loading, next minute they go up there, because I tell you, it's so much giant community here. So if you have a certain amount of money in the machine and somebody got their jar 50, one jar 100, there'll be no money. And we have a numerous of time find people come and to purchase things and still don't get through because there's no cash.
While he works on the POS machine, he's had to come up with a strategy to ensure that his customers return.
For me to keep my customer and make them happy, sometime I'll come across and say, listen me, I'm gonna give you, and then later tomorrow, when you sort it out, you send it by a taxi, come give me, or some other way out.
In 2010, the ATM Industry Association released a paper on the socioeconomic benefits of ATMs. It says retail purchases outside of banking hours and using cash from ATMs or credit cards have driven the extension of shopping hours beyond the previous limits, providing for greater sales, greater employment opportunities, and greater convenience for today's highly mobile citizens. It's why 15 years later,
so one ATM is not good enough for Geisel, because Geisel is a big, major area that do business in and out.
And as it relates to the maintenance and the management of disruption of service, the BOJ says banks should be aware in real time when an ABM is out of service. Therefore, they should apply a suitable system to be alerted when a machine begins malfunctioning. But in St. Elizabeth, residents say that's not being reflected in their parish. They're asking why they have to wait so long for machines to be fixed. On September 22, 2025, these two men stumbled upon machines that were inoperative.
I want to come here with the problem. I never come here and know have a problem. I try to draw, I have to go to the next machine. All kind of problems. And the worst machine them I said this better. Right, that's at the cruise here. Yeah, no.
I come here all the while. Even when I go in an early morning time, I come in here. Machine them now, 4 machines now. You know, for a weekend, and they come and you have to drive money to pay your work and them no money.
St. Elizabeth produces a large portion of Jamaica's fruits and vegetables, and supplies much of the island's domestic needs. River and sea fishing are also popular in the capital city, Black River. ATMs play an important role in supporting farmers, vendors, tourists, fishermen, and everyday residents. But where's the support? This man checks 3 ATMs in Santa Cruz. All 3 say temporarily out of service. He braved it and tried to insert his card. No access.
Most time they're down. That's the biggest problem we have. They're down. I really feel upset and down because normally sometimes it just depend on your card because carrying around cash you really make it. So I just say, alright, I'll use my card, get some money and move on. It's a big problem now, not reaching anywhere. I just have to try if I can check another machine. If not, I don't know what else to do.
And if you journey to St. Thomas, a major grouse is the delay in refilling machines. Frustration stretched to Yalla Square, where shoppers were left cashless.
I think it's absolutely disgusting. I've come out, no money. I put my card in 4 times and they said, the machine tells me I could get $150, $150. That's all they had. Short of cash. I know I have no money. I have no money. Weekends coming and I need my money. And the machine, I think the government needs to do something about it. And also the bank to get together. It's a Friday. People need their grocery. They've got our money in the bank and they decided no money.
While there are cries for more effort to be put in restoring ATMs, in 2015, the International Journal of Innovation, Management and Technology said predicting cash demand is challenging as it's an ever-changing process affected by several factors. It says demand is subject to change according to period of time, position of ATM, and the socioeconomic features of users. In addition, the quantity of cash drawn is generally larger before holidays. It adds, people tend to withdraw money during paydays, or at the beginning of each month, or at the end of each week. Also, tourist destinations observe higher demand during holidays, while ATMs in shopping centers are mostly used on Fridays and Saturdays. When you think tourist destination, you think Negril, right? But here, another concern from the Economy and Production Committee.
Negril, capital or casual, we have 10,000 hotel workers, accounts for something close to a third of tourist income. So it's massive. We have only 2 ATMs. So even 3 now, 3. 3. So within that context, when one goes down, you have these lines that goes in perpetuity around the building. And they stand up in rain waiting for hours to use the machine. And this goes not just from 9 to 5, but it goes right up in the night. People are just lying in there queuing.
Another resident says it's not just about withdrawing. There are also issues when trying to make deposits.
Sometimes you go to the machine and they're not working. Even in NCB, you have at least 5 to 6 machines, and sometimes only one working. On the Scotia machine, sometimes 3 machines and 1 sometimes. Sometimes you go to do deposit and you cannot do deposit because they're not taking. It's like the drawer full, the tray full, so they're not taking the money for deposit. So they need to service the machine more often and things like that. And what they should have done is to have, say, 2 specific machines for deposit only.
This video captured in Morant Bay highlights a real-time struggle.
Me there about 20 minutes now. The money still a scan. No card now come up back, the money in our deposit. It just a scan the money. 40,000. And even they were like, so I will able to put in 40,000 out of the people money for my deposit at the NCB. So I call customer service so they can't do nothing about it because the money never reached the account. So I like, am I supposed to be here till 4 o'clock in the morning? Suppose the money never come up back. Am I just gonna stand up here the whole time? And I say if I leave and the money come out and somebody else get it, them not responsible. All right.
We head to another parish right after this break. Stay tuned. In Portland, residents were irate as they spoke about the lack of service at the machines. There's one at the entrance of the College of Agriculture, Science and Education, CASE, in Port Antonio. When I checked on October 12, 2025, it worked. There are 2 at Bayshore Plaza, a shopping mall also in Port Antonio. One from the National Commercial Bank and one from Scotia. I showed up just in time to see this beryllium vehicle arriving at 12:56 p.m. 2 guards stepped out and went to conduct what appears to be service checks. Who knows how many people were unable to get cash prior to beryllium's visit. According to Richard Biles, governor of the BOJ, that could be a thing of the past. This is what he said on August 21, 2025.
A lot of the problems that people are experiencing at ATMs to get cash can be addressed over the years when we get Jam-Dex rolled out.
Jam-Dex is Jamaica's central bank digital currency, a digital version of the Jamaican dollar. 1 Jam-Dex dollar is equal to 1 Jamaican dollar. It was officially launched in 2022.
If you have a wallet full of Jam-Dex, unless you can spend it at places that use a POS machine, you have to resort to cash or you have to use your credit and debit cards. So it's critical, and the commercial banks know the POS machine conversion is what is holding up the effective and massive rollout of Jam-Dex.
The BOJ has been publishing performance figures for ABMs. The data is based on unaudited submissions from 8 financial institutions: Scotiabank, CIBC Caribbean Bank, First Global Bank, JMMB, Jamaican National, the National Commercial Bank, Sagicor, and Victoria Mutual Building Society. Uptime refers to the duration of time during a 24-hour period that a machine is operational and available for cash transactions. There should be a compliance with the minimum requirement of 95%, but this is the reality for rural parishes. In January 2025, there was a 93% uptime, February 91.9%, March 90.8%, April 91.8%, May 91.1%, June 90.7%, July 92.2%, and 2024 saw 3 months dipping below 90%, October 88.5%, September 88.3%, July 83.8%. Unimpressive numbers to farmers who are demanding the same 100% they give daily to get their crops ready. Farming is a vital livelihood sustaining families. But in Yorktown, Clarendon, that is being threatened. Farmer Roy Martin says the long distance away from the ATMs is unbearable.
It's so far off from the property that we're farming on. And majority of the time when we want to conduct any business like pay workers, buy anything, we have to travel to Maypen or to Clarendon Park, which is so far. Sometimes the workers then get frustrated because I wait for the money too long, because we have to go too far to get it, knowing that you cannot keep money on you while you're in the farm, because anything can, even rubber can come around. But so we would need an ATM located in Yorktown.
Another problem?
The ATM machine only work in the morning. And sometimes in the evening it's not working either. So you have to lucky to go there in the day, which at that time when you go there, everybody is present. So we take you a long time to get through. And there may be only 1 or 2 working in the town. So it creates a difficulty for everybody that is dealing with business or money.
Since 1997, ATM Marketplace has been reporting on trends in the ATM industry. In 2016, it said ATM deployers need to ask themselves 3 questions. How well they know their ATM network, how well they know their customer, and how quickly they can resolve ATM issues. It adds that traditionally, ATM availability has been measured by the amount of time an ATM is down, but this fails to consider the value of high usage time periods compared to low usage time periods. It also fails to take into account the fact that some ATM locations have greater importance from the customer service viewpoint as they get more traffic than others. Additionally, some customers have greater importance than others as they perform more transactions and take advantage of more banking services across the board. This is DeAndre Moore. He created a mobile application called ATMFinder JA, which helps users locate functioning ATMs in Jamaica. This through user-submitted updates on ATM status.
One day I was trying to get cash to, I think it was to pay somebody to wash my car. Yeah, and that to go from about 3 ATMs before I found it. I went on Twitter, did a quick search, ATMs, and realized that a lot of persons were having problems. Called one of my friends and he said, yo, it makes sense, build it. So I just built it in about 2 weeks and then we launched it.
Is it much help for rural parishes?
I'm actually from Mandeville, so I have a very good understanding as it relates to rural usage. I find that both from the data and from interacting with people on the streets, it's the fact that they already know where their ATMs are. So let's say in Mandeville, I think there's around 10, 11 ATMs between all the major banks. Some persons typically know exactly where to go and find their ATM. So it's not like a discovery like when you're in Kingston, you're trying to find it. But what you often find is that if an ATM status is not working, right, and someone is trying to find an ATM, they'll probably look for something that says working, and that ATM could have been serviced or maintained a few days ago. So it will come up as a false positive to that person that the ATM is not working when indeed it was being serviced. So then you have ATMs have status of not working, that it's out of date, and it's not very efficient in that way.
Here, a live example. Several rural locations checked, all say not working. For clarity, the ATMs may have been working at the time, but were previously reported as out of service and were not used since. Mr. Moore says his research showed that rural Jamaicans are at a disadvantage.
Kingston has a denser population, so there's more ATMs per square kilometer versus in the rural area where, like, I look at St. Mary, and there's I was surprised when I was like, these are the only ATMs in St. Mary's, so there's definitely that disparity there, whereas a lot fewer ATMs, serving those persons, which understandably so, economical reasons, but it definitely does put them at a disadvantage, because if this NCB one isn't working, some persons like to stick to NCB and don't go to Scotia if it's an NCB card they have, when they can still get the same benefit from Scotia, and they'll just stick to their NCB because it's just one NCB they have close by, and they're probably not driving. So to find the next one will probably be a good 20 minutes walk.
The people have voiced their concerns, and now the banks will respond right after this break. So stay tuned. On January 13, 2025, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, imposed sanctions on 9 banks for non-compliance with its cash distribution guidelines. Each bank was fined 150 million naira, over $60,000 for failing to make naira notes available to customers via ATMs during the festive period, despite repeated warnings.
It appears the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, is showing itself to be a dog that can back and bite in regulating monetary policies in the country.
In September 2024, the CBN directed all banks to ensure cash availability at ATMs across the country. This became necessary, with Nigerians frequently complaining of the inability to access cash. At the time, the CBN warned that banks breaching this rule would face sanctions. Back on the local scene, the BOJ also publishes data regarding the number of ATMs in operation each month across rural parishes. In January, there were 255 ABMs, 248 were operational. February, 247 were operational of a total of 254. March, 248 of 254. April, 247 of 254. May, 240 of 254. June, 239 of 254. July, 242 of 255. As at July 2025, the National Commercial Bank NCB has a total of 299 ATMs across Jamaica. 88 serve rural parishes, the most of any institution, and all 88 are in operation. Daniel Cameron Duncan is the head of the Payment Services and Digital Channels Division at NCB. She pointed to issues affecting the uptime and reliability of ATMs in rural parishes.
We acknowledge and understand the impact that we have in the financial ecosystem, just in terms of the need to ensure that we have reliable, secure ABM and accessible ABM networks across the island. When we have issues, whether or not that's with light, that's with telecoms, or with access to roadways, it takes even longer for us to go and resolve those issues. So what would typically have been resolved in 2 or 3 hours by a service provider being able to get a location gets impeded if that issue is a light issue, or that issue is a telecoms issue, or there's no access to the roadway, which is something that we've also, again, we saw in some specific parishes which have been addressing as well. So that has also improved. But we have been making the investments, as we talked about. One of the things we did was we increased the number of ABMs that we had generally that can take deposits. So that was moved up from, I think it was 134 to 155 ABMs, so a significant increase in the number of ABMs. And then we did an upgrade of the ABMs as well. So we upgraded almost half of the fleet so that they could have higher deposit capability and higher dispense capability. So you have less of the machine running out of cash especially in those hard-to-reach areas.
30% of NCB's total fleet of ATMs is in rural parishes. Mrs. Cameron Duncan says the most recurring complaints from customers include wait time for downed ATMs to be fixed and issues when making deposits.
What we try to do is, what you see is that almost 50% of our ABMs, there are more than one ABM at each location. So for 50%, it's single, just so that we can get the reach and capacity. And then for 50% of them, we have them doubled. So 2 or 3 ABMs at a location so that we can create better customer availability across the island. We process 2.5 million transactions a month. That's about $35 billion in transactions per month across the island. And again, this is for not just NCB customers, but for almost 30% of those customers are customers that are not part of NCB.
Now, Scotiabank indicated that it could not provide an interview and it chose to respond to questions via email. As of July 2025, the bank has a total of 292 ATMs across the island, 87 in rural parishes. That's the second highest among all institutions. But currently, only 76 are in operation. The release says, quote,
"In some cases, machines are destroyed and require full hardware replacement, and it's a process that can take several months. Additionally, telecommunication networks in some rural areas are at times unstable, which can cause ATMs to go offline intermittently. Now, theft and damage of our ATMs have been on the increase, with most incidents taking place in rural areas. For example, since the start of October, we've had 4 instances of ATMs being vandalized and consequentially inoperable."
End quote. Now, Sagicor has a much smaller fleet, 50 ATMs island-wide with only 10 in rural parishes. It's interesting to note that Sagicor's total number of ATMs is less than Scotia and NCB's distribution across rural parishes alone. Now, let's head inside for some more information. I sat down with Richard Patterson, Sagicor's Assistant Vice President for Card Operations and Digital Channels.
There can be several issues that impact our uptime, particularly in the rural areas. But for the most part, we have been doing fairly well. Some issues are outside the bank's control, like power outages, vandalism. There can be damages to our cable, a card, a defective card probably jammed the card receptacle. There can be even a case of a fraudster trying to attach a skimmer or access the machine, but those are some of the primary issues. In some instances, when issues arise and we reach out to our service partners, sometimes there's a delay in them reaching on the location to address the issue, whether it's for traffic reasons or for logistics reasons. So those are some of the primary issues.
For many rural residents, limited machines remain a sore point. That's why there's a focus on expansion.
We have started a process in Q2 into Q3 as well as for the remainder of the year and into 2026 to have more ABMs in those locations so our clients can have greater options and reduce the travel distance from home to a machine or from work to a machine. So those are some of the major issues impacting our clients. But for the most part, we have been doing fairly well with our ABM services in the rural parishes.
But sometimes customers damage machines unknowingly.
Customer education is critical. I think sometimes the card usage, sometimes defected plastics are used that jam the card receptacles.
Now, following reports from multiple people across rural communities, I asked the banks about the systems they have in place to detect when an ATM is about to run out of cash or when an ATM goes out of service.
We have 24/7 sort of automated tracking systems that look at what is the cash level at each of the ABMs, what are the fault types at each of the ABMs, and that allows us to proactively go about fixing issues before we can have significant outtime in the machine. So we are notified, as well as our cash in transit providers and service people have the same systems that are available to them, so they know in advance of a communication that there is a downtime issue at any one of the machines. That system also allows us to proactively do data analytics on when do we see sort of the highest demand for cash across those ABMs, what is the cash level that we're seeing at different periods so that we can adjust accordingly what is the cash level at each of those ABMs. And like I was saying, go back and make sure that we have uptime and particular attention in some of the high use areas of a lot of our providers.
We have a dedicated team that monitors our ABM operations, and this is 24/7. They have access to the systems, they have access to the ABMs and the status of the ABM. So even before our clients identify that there's an issue, and even before there's a cash outage, we have a certain threshold that creates an alert to these persons that monitors the ABM. In some cases, if an issue arises, they are able to address the issue immediately. In other cases, they'll have to escalate to our service provider. If it's a technical issue, to our service provider. If it's a cash management issue, of course, to our courier services. And they are responsible to track each reported case of issue and maintain that line of communication with the service provider until the issue is resolved in the shortest possible time.
Now, where Scotia is concerned, the bank says, quote,
minor problems such as clearing a jammed dispenser note are typically resolved quickly by our first-line support teams. Now, when ATMs are out of cash, we need to await the services of our cash-in-transit vendors. More complex repairs, particularly those involving vandalism or hardware replacement, may take longer. So in cases where an entire unit or a lifelong component is damaged, replacement parts need to be specially sourced.
End quote. The Bank of Jamaica has service standards for deposit-taking institutions, but are those services being met? That question will be answered right after this break. Stay with us. In April 2024, during an all-angles interview, opposition spokesman on finance Julian Robinson described the BOJ's service standards as a good first step. But because there's only the possibility of supervisory consequences and no monetary sanctions if there are breaches, he said the BOJ needed to explain further.
I would certainly want to see, if it's not monetary, there has to be something in there that the BOJ can hold the banks accountable. If you publish this and there are no sanctions or no way to hold the banks accountable, then the banks are not obliged to implement this.
I met with the BOJ's Deputy Governor, Dr. Lewis. Question: has the BOJ considered penalizing banks if they fail to provide consistent ATM services in rural areas?
Currently, no. Currently, what we have is guidance to the sector, and we are allowing them to compete amongst each other to ensure that their numbers look good, because we do publish those numbers in both mainstream media and on our website. So that's the mechanism that we're relying on at this moment. However, with Twin Peaks, which will be a switch, a bit of a change in our regulatory architecture, there is the thought process that there will be a regulator that will be focusing on conduct-related issues and consumer protection-related issues. That's very different from the current mandate of the bank, which is really around safety and soundness, which is whether or not the bank is failing or whether or not the bank is a going concern. And so in that era, when that is promulgated, the thought process is that whatever standards and regulations are issued there, they will have penalties that travel with them.
Further, he says talks of sanctions come with several questions.
Not to simplify it too much, because, do you fine a bank because the current went out at the ABM? Do you fine a bank because there's no telecommunication access to the ABM? Do you fine a bank because the cash-in-transit courier is late? And so those are some of the nuances that would have to be worked through when that regime comes into place.
In the meantime, he contends that the service standards have improved ATM services in rural Jamaica.
We have seen notable improvements in service delivery across both urban and rural areas. Specifically, for rural areas, we have seen where the uptime has gone from 90% to 92%. We have seen where 95% of all ABMs in rural parishes are now furnished, meaning that they're operational. And we have seen where the rate at which the DTIs, the banks, fix those ABMs has gone from about 5.5 hours
to 2.5 hours. That's an improvement of about half the time that persons have to wait.
But NCB says even before the BOJ's guidelines, it has always been on the ball.
We didn't need to make significant changes because we had already done a lot of the work in terms of changing out, upgrading a lot of the machines in order to increase the availability for our customers. We already had implemented 24/7 tracking infrastructure to make sure that we had a good sense of when we had downtime, what was, the cash levels at each of the machines so we can look at the replenishment. I think it's important what the introduction of some of the regulations by the BOJ, what it does is it levels the conversation. It sets sort of a standard that we're all playing against and helps us to get transparency, this type of transparency in the system around ABM operations and what's happening, as opposed to sort of, all ABMs are bad, all ABMs are down most of the time. We get a little bit more discussion around what's the standard that we're really setting and have set for our customers. And we continue to sort of invest and make sure that we're leading in that standard.
I would say it has really caused us to revamp some of the things that we are doing in terms of improving the service that we give to our clients. It is not the norm for Sagicor machines to go down for any extended period of time, unless that machine is subject to an upgrade or perhaps for an overall replacement. But what we find is that our fleet of ABMs has been 100% operational in recent times, and we are looking at anywhere between 95 to 95.5% uptime, which is satisfying the Bank of Jamaica minimum ABM standards, and I would suspect meeting our clients' expectations as well. There's always room for improvement, and we continue to explore ways in which we can tap into different ways to improve and increase the customer experience and satisfaction at our ABMs.
In addition, Scotia says, quote,
"The BOJ's service standards have strengthened ATM service delivery across the island, so local banks, including ours, continue to work towards full compliance with these guidelines, which help ensure more consistent and reliable service for customers."
End quote.
What we're seeing, however, is that there are still areas and parishes that are still struggling to meet those service level standards. So we do notice that, for example, St. Mary, Clarendon, and maybe St. Elizabeth is another parish where the banks have not been able to meet those standards, and they're still working at meeting those standards by continuous improvement. So we do acknowledge that there are parishes where the banks just simply have not been able to meet the standards that are set out under the SLS.
Dr. Lewis says customers often go to banks first with their grosses. So what do the banks tell the BOJ as it relates to the issues affecting their services outside the urban area? 1. Mechanical faults.
At the beginning of the introduction of the service level standard in April, the fault rate for all ABMs across the island was about 90,000 per month. That has now climbed to 100,000 as at July 2025. So what that means is that the machines are breaking down faster. Now, this could also reflect increased use of these ABMs as there's more economic activity.
Another, the age of the machines.
Typically, machines that are more end of life, and these machines may be more in the rural areas than in the urban areas. If it's a more end of life machine, then it means it's going to break down more frequently.
Banks, shopping centers, gas stations, grocery stores, you name it. There's usually an ATM right there, but whether proper service is right there with them is a problem. Jamaicans in rural communities have been struggling to stay afloat in the financial high seas. For years, there have been talks about moving to a cashless society, but they didn't think they'd actually end up cashless when the digital machines turn into digital deserts.